Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. I'm coming at you with some gameplay of K9 Crystron, a deck that I feel is probably being really underrepresented, both by myself here on the channel and in general, I think, on Ranked Ladder. I just have not seen a lot of this deck floating around, so I decided to come back to it and try it out a little bit more and just see if I could figure out exactly how good I thought it was. I'm going to start with an example of the going first duel. That'll show us setting up a pretty typical end board here. So we're going to begin with Noroi, end up going for the Ripper there after summoning Izuna and dumping off the Lupus in the graveyard. Now we can Lantern, revive Noroi, add Case for K9, activating Case for K9 to add another Izuna, but now we can activate Noroi, send Case, and look at our opponent's hand. And sorry, it went by really quickly there, but it ended up being Vanquish Soul K9, and their hand is, it's going to be Mad Love, Heavy Borger, Noroi, Fire Attacker, and Xiaolong. I remember, I didn't see it just now, but I remember because I played the game just like 15 minutes ago. But so not only do I know that they're on Vanquish Soul K9, but I know their hand's pretty dead, not only as far as like having plays against me, but also plays going into their turn, right? As long as I can negate a couple of monster effects, I shouldn't have anything to worry about. Now, I'm going to make River Stormer, even though I've already got Scrap Recycler in hand, because I can still add an extra Noroi, which, like, why not? But I'm also still going to need a couple of machines to link into the Platinum Gadget. Now, of course, Platinum Gadget can summon out the Scrap Recycler, which can then dump the Crystron Smyger, and then link off into the Clockwork Knight. You do need to do this in order to be able to make SP Little Knight, because you can't link away Platinum Gadget, but you contribute the Platinum Gadget with Clockwork Knight to revive the Scrap Recycler, dump another Crystron card if you want to the graveyard, or any other machine really, and then we can go for the SP Little Knight. Alright, now we can go for the Smyger effect. Smyger is going to add the Inclusion. Let's activate Crystron Inclusion. Use that to add Sulfidor. Sulfidor can activate popping the Inclusion. It's always important to note that once you summon Sulfidor, by its first effect, you are machine locked. The other machine lock in this deck is Tristaros' Graveyard effect. So if you need to summon out something like Little Knight or Ripper or other rank 5s that aren't machines, make sure you're doing that before you're activating either Sulfidor's first effect to summon or Tristaros' Graveyard effect to summon 2 level 5s from your deck, because those will both machine lock you. But anyway, now we're going to go for Ellie Skelly. We're going to add back that cluster we sent off Sulfidor. That's why you send a cluster with Sulfidor, is to be able to add it. But now we can summon 2 level 5s, and normally I think I would revive Tristaros and make Dawn Dragster to have a spell trap negate, but again, I know I'm against Vanquish Soul K9, and I know all 5 cards in their hand are monsters. So instead, I'm going to revive the extra Sulfidor and make 2 rank 5s, Cyber Dragon Infinity and the Chronomaly Vimana, which negates a monster effect, on top of setting Cluster and having Ash Blossom as well. Alright, so going into their turn, they're going to summon Mad Love. I know they've got Heavy Borger, plus they can obviously try to link into the Rock as well. So I'm going to use Cyber Dragon Infinity on the Mad Love to negate and destroy. Sure enough, they're going to chain Heavy Borger, but of course River can negate that. And from what I know of their hand, they shouldn't have any other plays, but we have the Vimana, Little Knight, Cluster, and Ash Blossom, and also Izuna plus Lupus in case they do. But as you can see, they don't have anything else. They're just going to go to end phase and pass right back over. So now we can simply switch the Vimana to attack mode, and I'll just swing in for lethal here. Yeah, I think that was a very clean example of like your ideal K9 Crystron game. And I mean, it's a pretty strong end board with a pretty solid combo line. K9, of course, being a very good engine in its own right. So there's that first duel done. A nice, again, demonstration of what the deck is capable of. If you're not familiar with it, or if you needed a refresher, let's take a look at some more nuanced, like, going second gameplay. Okay, got a couple of going second games. Here's the first one of them. But yeah, like I was saying towards the top of the video, I kind of feel like K9 Crystron is just a little bit underrepresented in this meta. And a recent YouTube comment that I saw on, I think it was my tier list video, kind of maybe have pointed out one of the main reasons. And that is because Tristaros and Inclusion are not in the Crystron secret pack. I actually had someone on the Discord server a little while back asking about being able to craft Crystron, and I remember looking at the Crystron pack and seeing that for myself as well. and being like, wow, really, they're just not in there still. It's a pretty big oversight if you ask me. Anyway, we're up against Radiant Typhoon going second. Droll and Lockbird on Crocea is going to put a stop to their game plans. And as we go to Ash Blossom, or as we go to summon Noroi, they're going to Ash Blossom, and we can chain Izuna. Our opponent's going to concede right away. This is going to be a very brief duel, but I think it still highlights very well the power of K9 Izuna, which is of course not only being utilized as part of a dedicated K9 engine, but as its own generic sort of hand trap, or moreover response to hand trap as well. Being able to put out multiple level 5 bodies when your plays would otherwise be stopped altogether is of course a very powerful effect. So gotta love having Izuna. And if you've got extra searches, like here I didn't open Izuna, but here I did rather, but if I hadn't, I think I would have activated Case for K9 adding Izuna before normal summoning Noroi. You can make an argument for that. That way when your opponent does have a hand trap, you can just have Izuna and then you don't have to rely on only Noroi to make plays. But, alright, let's show off another going second duel. Okay, here we are, losing the coin flip yet again. Honestly, if I'm playing K9 in pretty much any deck, I feel a lot better about going second. Just again, having those Izunas for turn 0 play is so crucial. And here we have Izuna along with a wealth of other hand traps. I'm going to fire off the Perulia during my opponent's draw phase, and they're going to respond with Ash Blossom, which is totally fine with me, because we still have Fuelos in hand, as well as, of course, the fact that Ash Blossom just made my Izuna alive. So we're up against Fire King. They're going to lead with Ponix for Skyburn. And I'm going to use Droll and Lockbird in response to that. They're going to get Sanctuary online and place the Fire King Island up. And then as they set 2 cards, they're going to go to end their main phase. And that's when I'm going to use Izuna. So I'm pretty reasonably likely, or I think rather that it's pretty reasonably likely that one of these 2 face down cards is the Skyburn, right? So if I can get this Ponix off the field, I won't have to deal with the Skyburn during my opponent's turn. So I'm going to use Izuna to dump and revive Lupus, and this is going to look really weird to do against Fire King, but I'm actually going to make Jax and activate to destroy their Ponix, and now they can add it back during the next standby phase, but they no longer control a Fire King monster to use that Skyburn that they added off the Ponix, right? So now I'm safe from my monsters being destroyed by that. So I really only have 1 card in their hand and 1 face-down card to worry about. I'm going to go Case for K9 to add Noroi. Then I'm going to activate Jokul in order to summon Noroi. Jokul effect will add Lantern. And then I'm going to activate Noroi, send Case, and look at their hand. And I see a Super Poly. Now, whenever I see a Super Poly in my opponent's hand, and I'm like asking myself, okay, why didn't they set that? My first thought is they must have another Super Poly face down, and they're playing to discard this one with the other one. So now I feel reasonably likely that I know that their other face down card is Super Poly. So of course I'd like to try to get monsters with different attributes to be able to OTK here. We're going to go for Ripper, which is Wind, and Jax is Dark. Now unfortunately Force Release I can't use during the battle phase, so you know, at the point when I summon Lupus, I've only got 7,200 damage on board, and I can't make lethal without putting more attribute, or more of the same attribute in play, whether it's Dark or Earth. So I'm gonna have to play into Super Poly if I want to try to swing in for lethal here. And I'd rather just get this Super Poly out of the way and just deal with it. So I'm gonna move to battle phase. Sure enough, there is Super Polymerization. They're going to discard the other Super Poly and infuse Jax plus Jokul, making Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Which again, this is all fine with me. I knew this was going to happen. I knew I couldn't make lethal without playing into the Super Poly anyway. So again, I'd rather just get it out of the way. So now during main phase 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to link into River Stormer, which I did consider doing during main phase 1. You might wonder why I didn't do that to access my Crystron engine, but the problem is if I go into River Stormer, they could potentially Super Poly it away, and then I'd kind of be SOL, wouldn't be able to do Crystron stuff. So now we can set up our Crystron side of the engine, and our opponent's going to concede, realizing that, you know, they might have Island plus Skyburn plus Ponix, but that is not going to be enough to stop what I'm setting up here. Alright, I've got one last duel to show you before we can finish off and look at the deck list. And this last game is going to be us setting up going first again. Alright, let's go ahead and dive right on in, see what we've got. Okay, here we have Case for K9 and a Sulfador, meaning that we can actually go Jokul plus Sulfador, which tends to be one of your better opening hand scenarios to be in, right? Because we've summoned a Sulfador without having to use its first effect, meaning we can get the benefit of sending our Crystron cards to the graveyard, and we're actually not machine locked, because again, we didn't special summon off its own effect, but rather the Jokul's effect. So we can send Smiger plus Inclusion, or not Inclusion, Cluster, that one. Jokul's gonna add Lantern. Now we can go Smiger for Inclusion, Inclusion for Tristaros. Gonna use my normal summon on the Tristaros here, and then synchro with the Jokul to make Elaskeltis. That way we can grab back the Cluster, and then I can still use Lantern to revive the Jokul. But I don't want to use Tristaros' graveyard effects to pop the Elaskeltis just yet, because that'll lock me into machines, right? So now I'm going to use Lantern to add the Force Release. We can overlay Jokul plus Lantern into Ripper. Now I'm going to activate Ripper, detach for an Izana. I'm going to use Tristaros' graveyard effect at this point. I'm fine being machine locked. We're going to summon out Sulfador plus Sulfaneer, and then Elaskeltis can revive Tristaros. And as you can see, I'm able to access like pretty much our full end board, right? Without having to go through all the hoops of having to, you know, necessarily play things in the highly specific order that we did before. I did misplay a little bit here, because I should have synchroed off the Sulfador that was summoned by Jokul, because that Sulfador can't be used to make a light rank 5. That's why I had to discard Cluster and pop it with Sulfaneer there. So again, if I had just played that a little better, and I had synchroed off that Sulfador with Tristaros, I could have kept the Cluster and had access to that as well. Basically having a full end board, but we still have the Ripper negate, we have the Dawn Dragster negate, we have the Infinity negate, and then we have the Force Release pop, plus Werewolf looking at their hand. Now here, I decided to keep extending with my Crystron engine. I mostly just wanted to demonstrate here that some people will actually play 2 Dawn Dragsters, and this is why, because there are a lot of hands like this one you could just make another level 7 synchro. I'm not, I'm just doing this for the sake of example here, but if you ever see a Crystron build that's on 2 Dawn Dragster, this kind of setup is why. Now, I did kind of screw myself out of Izana plus Lupus to show you this, but I don't know, I kind of figured it'd probably be fine, and I was just like, whatever, it'll be fine. They're going to go for the Blue Eyes, the Millennium Blue Eyes specifically, trying to add the Ankh. I'm going to activate Ripper. For some reason they called by on Jokul. That's totally fine. And I guess to be fair, even if I had done Izana plus Lupus here, they could have used call by on the Lupus. But they're going to concede as soon as I activate Force Release, because I know I can just pop the Sending Engine while setting up the Werewolf to be able to look at their hand as well. So that Millennium opponent really just did not stand a chance. Anyway, there's our duels. Let me show you the deck list and then we will finish off here. Okay, so here is my deck list for K9 Crystron. It's relatively standard, all things considered. I'm on a little bit of a minimal, I guess you could say, Crystron package, or rather, it'd be more accurate to say I'm not on the expanded Crystron package, which, if I can spell Crystron right, I can show you some of the cards. It basically would just go on to include Citri in the main deck, which gives you the ability to go into the Croyan Gandrix during your opponent's turn, which is a really powerful effect, but it also targets, and there's a lot of things in this format that have target protection or can otherwise get around targeting with like quick effects and removing themselves from the field or whatever. So I think it's a lot of setup for an effect that sometimes was kind of end up fizzling out, but it's still pretty solid, and I think it's still worth exploring if you're interested in it. Another option you could potentially look into for the extra deck, no, I spelled that correctly. Yeah, just second guess myself there. In Artifacts, you can play Durandal if you want. Some builds will play that instead of like the Chronomaly V Mana. This is actually a really interesting effect because as a quick effect, you can either essentially rewrite a monster effect or normal spell or trap effect to popping a back row card, which will often be either negligent or negligent or beneficial. No, not negligent. irrelevant is, I guess, more the word I was looking for. Basically, it's a negate, or you could also force your opponent to shuffle their hand back into their deck and draw the same number of cards, which, if they're under Joel and Lockbird, they'll have to simply shuffle their hand back and not get to draw cards. So that is a pretty potentially powerful combo that you can use, and the Artifact Durandale does end up being a very solid rank 5 option. Just be aware that, like the Cyber Dragon Nova, the Artifact Durandale is in fact a light rank 5, meaning that if you summon a monster off of Jokel or Lantern, they cannot be used for the Exceed summon of a rank 5 light monster. So, always worth noting that. But, like I said, overall things are fairly standard in this build, and for good reason. It's a very effective strategy. There's still a couple of flex spots in the extra deck, like Zeus and Typhoon I think are definitely flex spots. They don't tend to come up all the time, but pretty much every other card I do summon in the majority of games. So, alright, I think that's going to pretty much end my coverage of K9 Crystron here. Thank you as always for watching, super appreciate you. If there's any other decks you want to see, definitely let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to get to those as soon as I can. But for the time being, we're going to go ahead and move on to our outro so that we can thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers for their very generous support. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which, by the way, is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.